What up? What up? Jordan Chariton live. Status Coup. Wednesday, June 14th, the year 2023. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day in the United Corporations of America. Big show. Big show. It's going to be me this hour. Then we're going to have Kim Brown holding it down right after me at 6 o'clock Eastern. So you'll have 2 hours of Status Coup. I was out last night in my home away from home with Trump supporters. My third go around, I covered the Trump campaign in 2016 on the road all over the country. Then again in 2020. And boy, the evolution has been stark from 2016 to 2023. So we'll play some of the clips from last night. We have a bunch more interviews that we'll be posting over the next couple days. I wanted to go live, but the new live view that we just purchased, $15,000, by the way. So please help us out with those super chats because it costs us a lot. But having this new live view is going to be basically going to allow us to be live in more than one place at a time. You know, I could be live in one city, Lewis could be live in another, or Tina could be live in another. So really excited about that. I should be getting the new live view tomorrow. So we recorded yesterday. I digress. But boy, you know, I try not to be condescending or, you know, in a nasty way, demean Trump supporters because they're not all the same. They're not all bad people or all crazy. I've met a lot of good people. But at least this event last night, it was a plethora. And smash that like button. Share this live stream. You had Confederates with the Confederate flag there. You had Proud Boys there. You had QAnon people there and everything in between. So we'll get to that. Then I want to go through an RFK Jr. interview. I don't really have a ton of time. There's too much content, as you know. But I actually watched the full interview RFK Jr. did on Breaking Points because I see a lot of folks are gravitating to him, particularly on his position on Ukraine. But I have been very skeptical because from everything I've seen, he's pretty establishment on everything else. And I'd love to know what you think because we're going to go through the interview RFK did with Breaking Points. From what I could tell, he did not really answer any questions or offer any specifics at all. So we'll go through that. And of course, the breaking news, Ron Placone broke it for us last night that Cornel West, as we have been reporting about, there was blowback when he announced his third-party run with MPP. And now he has abandoned MPP and is now running for the Green Party nomination. So we'll give our reaction to that and to show you MPP's reaction. New YouTube member, Ariana. Thank you, Ariana. Before I get to the first topic, reminder, folks, you know, we had such an amazing month of May. Colin, I think we grew like 130 or so paid members between our YouTube members and our website members. You know, we would love to get that every month with signups, but we got to keep it going. We're going to be sending Tina, who at the moment is under the weather, so hopefully she gets better for this. We're going to be sending Tina back down to Atlanta to cover a week of action against Cop City. That will be about a week and a half. We're sending Tina. And I'm putting the finishing touches on my next trip. So please, 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 we're still investigating. We're still on the ground. I was there last night at the Trump rally with his supporters waiting for him, his triumphant return from Florida, where he was arrested yesterday and arraigned. So definitely, if you could sign up as a member, that's statuscoup.com/join. And if you could leave super chats, we'll read them at the end. All right. I want to get to the first clip, and this video is up. This woman, you know, this Trump supporter was very worried that I was going to selectively edit everything. And I promised her I'm going to post the whole thing unedited, which we did. So that whole video is up. She didn't want to say her name on camera. Later off camera, she told me her name. Out of respect, I won't say her name. I found it odd why she didn't want to give her name. But anyway, you know, here is just me, I thought, asking fair questions about the indictment, which I read. It was 40-something pages. It's overwhelming. you would have to really think that the government is just lying about the evidence in the indictment to think that Trump is innocent. I'm talking about if you're an objective person, not just a Trump fanatic. But let's see what she had to say on the Trump indictment. And by the way, if you haven't seen this yet, you know, make sure you got something near you, something to eat or something to drink. Put aside the documents for a second. The indictment itself says that he told his lawyer to lie to the DOJ.
You know what? I didn't read the docket to the indictment.
Okay.
I didn't read the 37 counts.
So you're just defending him without reading the indictment or knowing anything about it?
You know what? Yeah.
Okay, at least you're being honest.
Yeah, I'm being very honest.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I have followed every single minute detail of Trump's presidency from the beginning to the end, to the travesty of January 6th, okay, to right now. And I'm up to here with the bullshit, okay? I'm so sick. I'm a 70-year-old woman. I'm so sick of the lies and the obfuscation and the infighting and the demonization of good people. Look around you. What is your name?
Jordan.
Jordan. Look around you, Jordan.
I'm not demonizing.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Look around you. These are the people, okay, that are Trump supporters. These are the people that Hillary Clinton called deplorables, okay? These are the salt of the earth. These are the people that are in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s, who have retired, who have worked all their lives to have a sane, secure future in the United States, and you're seeing it go all down the toilet.
Tell me about that.
Okay.
Why do you think it's been so bad under Biden? Because of inflation and things like that?
Because Biden is a tool. Biden is simply a figurehead, a tool that is being used. His whole administration is a tool. They're all plants, okay? There's a greater
Plans for who?
there's a greater story that's going on here, okay? And if you, as a 30-something-year-old young man, cannot see
Tell me about it. What's
what is
going on?
happening to the United States.
But what's the greater thing going on? You said plants, so that would mean there are plans for someone.
I believe, frankly, that there is there are things in place right now to bring this country down to its knees.
You're talking about. Well, for starters, I just want to say she was a lovely woman. We spoke once I was done for the night and had a nice little chat. She was lovely, so I'm not trying to attack her. And she's very representative of the whole thing, all of it, most of these supporters. At least she was honest. You know, she didn't read the indictment. Listen, a lot of these people work, or, you know, I don't expect all of them to take the time to read a 40-something page indictment. You know, I'm a journalist, so that's my job. But when you're out there at a rally in defense of the president, the former president, over charges that he basically stole classified documents, national defense information, nuclear program documents that had the identities of human spies, documents about allies or enemies programs. And your answer is basically like, yeah, I don't know anything about it, but he's innocent. I mean, that's the sickness that we have in this society on both ends, whether it's the neoliberals, wine moms who think Hillary could have done no wrong back in 2016, and I challenged them back then, or the Trump stans and fanatics who it's at this point a cult. I mean, I'm out there and you literally have people with Trump buttons all over, Trump is Jesus shirts, QAnon shirts. I'm not exaggerating. This was all there last night. Proud Boys, and person after person. And at the end, after we post all the interviews, I'll have Colin, this poor son of a gun, Colin, has to do this. I'm just going to have him do a mashup because almost every single one of them, after I was asking them about this, almost every single one of it, the first thing out of their mouth was, what about this person? Even after I said, I'm with you, Hillary should have been indicted. I'm with you. Indict Hunter Biden. Even when I said, let's say in a theoretical world, they were indicted and there was evidence that Trump had committed crimes, there was long pauses and long hesitations to whether they would actually say, all right, then he should be prosecuted and convicted. So at this point, this is why I never bought on to the whole like DeSantis could take down Trump, because I could tell you from 2016 to now, there's a straight line and a common thread in this Trump movement, besides just the fascistic tendencies, the authoritarian tendencies. There is a WWF wrestling element to this. People love this man. It doesn't really matter what the policies per se are. It doesn't really matter what he does. It doesn't really matter if 10 years ago a politician was found with nuclear program documents in their bathroom. These same people might have been aghast and thought that was crazy and horrible and turned on that politician. It doesn't matter what he does. And I actually interviewed people, which will, when we post it, you'll see, they took a long pause when I asked, would you think he should go down if he murdered someone? I'm not exaggerating. They took a long pause before they said, yeah, probably. To murder. So this isn't about like, supporting the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. As I always tell viewers, vote for whoever you want. This is about, we have a political psychosis in this country, really on both sides. I think it's worse right now on the right, but we also have a political psychosis on the liberal side who, think Rachel Maddow's looking out for you, who think Joe Biden is a union guy, which is a joke, who basically, it's almost like an abuse victim saying, please hit me again. Sorry to be so crass. When it comes to the Democratic Party and voting against their own interests continually for the Democratic Party. But when she says, I didn't read it, and when I said back to her, so you're out here defending him, but you didn't read it and you know nothing about it. If you notice the pause, you know what? Yeah, that's what she said. So that's why, and I think Kim in the show after me, Kim Brown will be live at 6:00 Eastern. I think that's what she's going to touch on, because there's a real, frankly, white grievance element to this, where it doesn't really matter if Trump commits a crime, if he doesn't commit a crime. He's tapping into white grievance. He's tapping into predominantly, blue collar white folks' grievances over changes in the country, over, I interviewed somebody who had quite a lot to say about the LGBTQ issue. Let's play the next clip, Colin, on January 6th. If he's indicted in other cases, Georgia.
Yeah,
possibly,
they're coming.
If he's indicted over January 6th, that would be 4 indictments.
I'm sorry about that.
You're still with him, 4 indictments all the way.
Because let me tell you something about January 6th.
He was there, so.
You were?
Yeah, he got historic footage for Status Coup. I don't know if you saw that officer's head rammed into the door in the corridor.
Screaming for help.
That was it.
They were doing heat and clothes.
No, I didn't see that. I didn't see
it
that.
was all over. I'm just wondering how many indictments is too much, where people might say, we love Trump, but we don't think he could win.
No, you're never going to turn these people away from him.
Okay.
Okay? As a matter of fact, the more indictments that come, okay? Let me also say this. What was the premise of January 6th? Was it a coup? Was it to overthrow the government? Was it to overthrow?
So I'm going to leave the January 6th part. I know Kim is going to be covering that in the next hour. So definitely stay tuned. Kim is ready to go ham because she has a really unique perspective on what this woman had to say about January 6th. If you haven't seen what this woman had to say about January 6th, wait for the next hour. But I want to seize on something she said there. She said, you're never going to turn these people away from him. You're never going to turn these people away from him. And then she said, the more indictments, and then she kind of cut herself off. I thought she was going to say the more indictments, the better. I can't say that she didn't say the better as you watched, but it sounded like that was where she was going. Like the more indictments, and then she kind of shook her head. So I'm just going to take a leap, and I think what she meant was the more indictments, the more we support him. or the more indictments, the better. But let's start with her words. You're never going to turn these people away from him. That's why I say this, I'm not a diehard expert on cults. I've watched some TV shows on cults. I've read a little bit, but that's why I said in 2016, I didn't feel it was quite a cult. In 2020, I felt this has developed into a cult. And now I think this is kind of like, any of you ever watch like Colin, Billy Madison, O'Doyle's, O'Doyle rules, the family with all of them are redheads. And then they kind of drive off the cliff together. That's what this reminds me of. It doesn't really seem like these people's lives economically or socially or on a real material element were lifted by this man. It feels like these people were lifted by this man, not by actual concrete help he delivered them, but it seems that they were lifted just by the cult of personality, if that makes sense. Him talking their language and tapping into their grievances on the border and the Mexicans and the Muslims. He didn't really do that much of the culture war stuff. That's obviously DeSantis more. But, he did do regressive policy on transgender people in the military, et cetera, et cetera. So when you hear from somebody, you're never going to get these people to turn away from him. I mean, that should worry you, regardless of who you're voting for or what side of the political angle you're on. And the more people I interviewed, and again, we'll be posting these as the days go on. And thank you for the super chats. Keep coming. Keep them coming. I'll read them at the end. The more people I interviewed, it doesn't matter what's in the indictment. And they're very, very, very conspiratorial, to the point I kept turning to the camera. John Farina was shooting and just looking like we both were like, we need whiskey like right now after we left. I'm not being funny. Like every time I leave one of these things, particularly the big rallies, I have a headache. Because it's just like mental jousting. Even though I'm trying to be respectful, it's like mental jousting with some really interesting people. I'll leave it at that. All right, so we addressed those clips. Keep those super chats coming. We're going to play part of my interview with a Confederate for Trump, who is proudly waving his Confederate flag. Then I want to get into the RFK stuff and Cornel West. So please smash that like button. Keep the super chats coming. If you can, consider signing up as a Status Coup member. Just going out to these rallies costs money, paying for John, our cameraman up here. Obviously, Colin comes with us on trips and John sometimes, but we got to pay for, freelance camera people, our equipment, et cetera. The cost of going live, which costs money with our data plan. So please, statuscoup.com/join. Let's introduce you to the Confederate Trump supporter that I interviewed. Jordan, we're still here in Bedminster. I think Trump is going to arrive soon for his speech at his golf club. We're here with Vinny. You got secession, 1776, America's oldest tradition, Confederate flag.
And this one too.
Okay. Is that?
It's the first national Confederate flag. A lot of people don't know it, but originally had the first 7 stars for the 7 states that seceded from the Union. And then as more stars went, the flag changed. So many people know the battle flag. What they don't know is the 2nd and 3rd national, which also included the battle flag.
Okay. So are you, obviously, a lot of people will be offended. So are you like, you have it out for historical purposes, or more you think we should still have a succession where the South succeeds from the North? Tell me about why you're holding the flag.
Absolutely. So I was blessed to have ancestors that fought in the Confederacy. And I think in this day and age, when they started the attack on history, with the technical terms iconoclasm, it started with Confederate heritage. And we warned everyone that if it started with us, they were going to keep going. We've seen now where that's gone. Up in New York, they've attacked a memorial that was up in the State House in Albany. And they wanted to remove now, Arlington, that's on the chopping block now. And where does this end? We came together as a nation and they honored both North and South with both flags with no problem. And the fact that in recent years they wanted to, take ours down, take our monuments down. I was ashamed and offended by that. They want to do something so evil like that.
So what do you say to, obviously, black people that say it should be taken down because this is not about, when you're honoring this history, you're honoring people that held slaves, you're honoring people that saw black people as property, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you could put it in a museum, which has been talked about, and keep it in historical museums, but not at state capitals, not out in statues. Put it in a museum, not waving it around at political events and things like that, where it's going to offend a big proportion of America, which that represents their captivity, basically.
Not necessarily, because a lot of people don't know this fact, and there is a marker up in New Jersey. Many people don't know this, but the real Juneteenth, that was in New Jersey. January 23rd, 1866 was when the last slaves in America were freed. Now, when they talk about the slavery narrative, here's what's really interesting.
What's the slavery narrative? What do you mean?
So what happened when they talk about I call it the war between the states, but the Civil War, when they say it was all over slavery, there were northern slave states, and what they also forget was they had free men of color that fought for the Confederacy. There's several different heritage organizations. I can't speak on behalf of mine, but I'm a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Our chapter in New Jersey has a man who was black and had a free ancestor who was black and fought for the Confederacy. He's proud of the flag, and it really puts in perspective that it is in everybody's war. I myself am half Puerto Rican, and it's also awesome to know that there were Latinos that fought in the Confederacy, more Native Americans that fought in the Confederacy as the Cherokee Braves. They had a special flag designated to them, and women as well.
Would you agree with honoring Confederate history, but in museums where people who want to see it can go, but not out at state capitals, not out in statues, in basically historical entities like museums?
Not at all, and the reason why is because we've had issues with museums either putting false information in. We've had museums such as the one in Richmond. Richmond has a museum that took that gravestone of General A.P. Hill when he was dug up last year in December 2022. They took the gravestone, they dug him up, and his gravestone was dedicated to the museum. And the unfortunate part too was also seeing what happened in 2020. 2 museums were set on fire, and we lost historical artifacts. So by putting everything in one museum where it could be a target or be attacked, I don't agree with that, and I think that we have the First Amendment right, and we should be out there honoring both sides.
So let me ask you, did you say you're part Puerto Rican?
Yes, sir.
So just playing devil's advocate, if you have Puerto Rican heritage, if people were chanting, slurs towards Puerto Ricans or doing things that were offensive to Puerto Ricans, or, there was people celebrating Puerto Rico colonialism, would you be okay with them outwardly kind of being
so like a colonial monument in Puerto Rico?
No. Would you be okay with people out and about, with chanting anti-Puerto Rican slurs, or with symbols that might be offensive to Puerto Ricans or things like that, if it offended a whole, Puerto Rican obviously is not the same as black people, but offended
We're
a whole
mixed
people.
culture.
Right.
Puerto Rico, people don't know this, they had slavery longer than the United States of America.
Okay, so that's enough for that part. There's more to it. The reason I wanted to show this, and to answer somebody in the chat who said, why are you wasting our time with these nuts? Well, I think it's important in a country where you have, frankly, a clear rise in just outward hate and a clear rise in outward violent conspiracy movements between QAnon, Proud Boys, white militia groups. This is not the first time I've been to a Trump rally where there was Confederates, like either pro-Confederate Trump supporters or just people who were part of Confederate groups in their local city or state. I actually, in 2016, when I was in South Carolina, before the primary, there was a whole Confederates for Trump event in South Carolina at the Capitol that I had interviews. So I think it's important. I'm not just doing this for clicks. It's important to show you, like, these folks are not just kind of like in the shadows anymore. This is rising in America. It's not just a few wingnuts like some people minimize. This is a growing hate movement. You could argue whether it's how much of it is Donald Trump is responsible or not. But I think it's important that we know what we're up against here. It's not just, corporate neoliberalism, which has elements of fascism attached to it. I absolutely think the Democratic Party are a fascist party in a lot of ways. Standing Rock was fascist. I believe what's going on in Cop City under a Democratic mayor in Atlanta, under Democratic senators in Atlanta. Biden is the president and allowing that to happen with the crackdown on First American protests. And you have Republican fascists all over this country. I think Ron DeSantis, what he is doing down in Florida is quintessential fascism. Between the book burning, he tried to push a law that would allow drivers to run over protesters legally. So there's a lot of fascism to go around. Some of it is of the white supremacist and violent conspiracy shade. Some of it is corporate fascism. But I think it's important to show you this is no longer in the shadows. And for some reason, I think we know the reason, the folks on the white supremacist side, the folks on the neo-Nazi side, because there are also now neo-Nazis, which we have covered, showing up at drag queen story hours. We covered that in Ohio to harass children and their parents. The other day, there were neo-Nazis that swirling around the Disney entrance in Florida. There have been neo-Nazis at Trump events that I've covered, or Tina has covered, or John Farina has covered. This is serious shit, folks. We can't just minimize it. We could all hate the Democratic Party. We could all be critical of the Democratic Party, but you got to walk and chew gum at the same time. Do not look the other way as fascism rises. Because I'll tell you what, late 1920s, early to mid 1930s, there's a whole lot of people in Germany saying, oh, that Adolf Hitler, what a fucking knucklehead. Nobody should take him seriously. So, Colin, can we fast forward to the part with the Confederate guy, specifically on the Trump indictment?
There's a real, it seems like a normalization right now. We just saw images of Nazis, but not just Trump events, DeSantis events. He's responsible for everything.
He funded Antifa. He did fund. Yes, he sure did.
Okay, so they're all plans. Got it. Trump arrest. I read the indictment. Did you?
I did.
You read the 49 pages?
I did.
Okay, cool. So what do you think? Because Trump seems to be going back and forth. First he says he declassified all of it, but now he's saying a lot of it was planted. It seems like he's changing the story a bit. And there is audio, the prosecutor claims, there's audio of Trump in July of 2021 at the club down here, holding a classified document, telling an author that I want to show you this, but I can't because it's classified, and I should have declassified it, but this is classified and I can't show it. What do you think about that?
I think that Trump, I will always stand by him, and I think that this is just really unfortunate.
You will always stand by him no matter what.
I will stand by Trump because he actually has principles for this country.
No matter what, even if he commits a crime.
I don't think he committed a crime.
If he commits a crime, would you still stand by him?
Yes.
If he commits a crime, you'd stand by him.
But he did not commit a crime.
I'm asking you if he committed any crime. If he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, that was the famous thing.
Well, homicide, obviously no one's agreeing with homicide. Let's be frank with that.
Homicide is where we draw the line.
But what they're accusing him of is absolutely ridiculous, and it's a political theater.
Why do you think it's ridiculous?
Because Biden had documents at his house.
I keep hearing that. Let's say
Hunter had the laptop from hell, which was real.
All right, let's just say
they chose to ignore that. And they lied about it.
Let's say this for a second. Let's say in a theoretical world, because I think Hillary should have been indicted. I certainly would have been. So let's say Hillary was indicted. Let's say Hunter's indicted. In this theoretical world, though they were indicted, right? If Trump had classified documents that were not declassified, let's just say, and they included defense papers, attack plans on a foreign country, the names of spies. If these other people were indicted, so we take them off the board, do you think Trump, if that was government property, it wasn't his property anymore, would you think he should be prosecuted and convicted?
Well, I think we'd have to know the whole case. I don't think Trump knowingly would ever do anything illegal to hurt the American people. I do.
Colin, could you come on here? Did you see a bit of a hesitation at the murder is obviously a red line? Because this is not the first person that I interviewed. Most of them, like when I said, is there anything he could do if he shot somebody? It wasn't like an immediate, like, of course not. It was like, well, murder is that would be the red line. It's just crazy. And you're hearing the same kind of phrasing just from different people. We will never, I wrote it down. We will never, you're never going to turn these people away from him. The woman said. This guy says, I will always stand by Trump. He's kind of saying, well, yeah, I mean, homicide is different. But I don't know. It seems like up to homicide, he could do whatever the hell he wants, and they're just going to stand by him.
Well, he if you notice, he didn't actually directly say that homicide would be the line. He said, well, of course, that would probably, like, he kind of was kind of wishy about it, and he tried to move on to the next question, probably because he's like, well, I'm being recorded and you're not one of my friends. But if I was like, you know, in my normal environment, then yeah, no, if he killed someone, there's probably a good reason for it, for the American people or something like that.
It's just crazy. I mean, besides the fact that obviously, like, I think it's disgusting what he represents. I try to be friendly with these folks. I spoke with a few of them after he wanted to speak with me. I did not really speak with him for that long. I'm not gonna, glorify a Confederate, whatever bullshit he's spewing about the historical nature. I think that's all a cover. And I think obviously they have a passion for the Confederacy for a reason. Most of these people. But I will say, folks, pay attention, because we're going to get into RFK next. Then we're going to get into Cornel West. But for those that think that Trump cannot win the general election against Biden, I'm here to tell you, be careful with your assumptions. Even if he's indicted with 2 more indictments for Georgia and in Georgia and January 6th, you're going to need the same amount of people to come out for Biden that did in 2020, if it's Biden, which I'm not convinced of yet. And you're probably going to need possibly more, because I think Trump might get more. So be careful. Be careful. Those people could say, oh, Jordan, you're standing for Dems. You vote for whoever you want. I'm telling you, because I go to these things. These are not wingnuts. These are not just knuckleheads. These, in a lot of cases, some of them are really mentally ill. Some of them are dangerous. And it's a growing movement of people that love this man like a cult leader. Now, smash that like button, share this live stream. I want to turn to RFK, who did an interview with Crystal Ball. I chose a few clips. I agree with RFK on Ukraine, and that's pretty much it. And on Ukraine, it doesn't seem to me, as you'll see from this interview, that he's offering a lot of specifics on how he would propose to end the Ukraine war. But I wanted to start with this first clip, which to me, I'd love to know what you think, because literally he did not give any coherent answer on what his economic plan is, which... that's the economy, stupid. Whether you're progressive, liberal, conservative, people care about their wallets. And it was a really surprising answer for what it showed, which was just a complete lack of even preparation, a lack of forming a plan. Take a listen.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, okay, so if you're president, you're going to cut back the military aid, you're going to seek a diplomatic solution in Ukraine. What would you do to bolster the economic prospects of the American people? For example, do you support things like a federal jobs guarantee? Do you support a universal basic income? What would your economic platform be to help working class Americans?
I mean, my primary platform is to cut the costs on the military, to get what we were told was a peace dividend after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War in 1992. We were going to cut our military budget from about $600 billion a year to $200 billion a year. And that, instead of making, a $1 billion stealth bomber that can't fly in the rain, we were going to take that money and invest it in schools and in infrastructure and in rebuilding America. And instead, we've had the military-industrial complex running our foreign policy and the neocons. And instead of going down to $200 billion, we're now at $1.3 trillion if you look at all the costs associated with the military. And we need to cut that back to the levels that we were promised, somewhere around those levels. Of course, we need to protect our country, but we can do that by building Fortress America, arming ourselves to the teeth at home, and then spending that money to rebuild the industrial base in this country and rebuild the middle class. I mean, my job is to rebuild the American middle class. We had a period in this country that I was lucky enough to grow up at the height of, beginning at the end of World War II to about 1980. That's called, economists call the Great Prosperity. It was the largest economic growth in the history of the world. We had the biggest and most robust middle class. The middle class was an economic engine that generated half the wealth on the face of the earth from the American middle class. And people wanted our products. People, loved our country, by the way. We were really worshipped around the globe and looked to for moral authority and leadership. And, and I would like to get back to that kind of America where we focus on building our economy at home rather than wars abroad.
And does that, just to clarify, do you support either a federal jobs guarantee or a universal basic income as part of that program?
I don't know about that. I need to look at those things, and see, and I need to talk to a lot of economists and talk about the ups and downs of those issues. I can see a lot of problems with those issues, which I think are obvious to anybody. And it's a real departure from American free market capitalism. I'd like to try to give this system a chance to work.
What do you think the minimum wage should be, sir?
And let me say something about that. The reason I wouldn't just say an outright no to the universal basic income and a guaranteed jobs program is because I don't really understand what AI is going to do to our country and what self-driving. I mean, even with self-driving cars, and I talked to Elon Musk about this a couple of weeks ago. I read an article, and I don't know if this is true or not, that over 40% of American jobs include driving. So if you cut away all the driving cars, which is what the intention and aspiration of this, of this new technology is, I do not know what that's going to do to the American economy. I mean, we've had big dislocations before, the end of slavery, for example, in our country. Right. And we had to do these big economic readjustments. And then the invention of the automobile, around at the beginning of the 1900s, when you had if you were a buggy whip manufacturer, that job disappeared, right? Or if you were a buggy manufacturer, whatever, or a stable, those jobs disappeared in a couple of years. But they were replaced by new jobs, and in most cases, they were better jobs. They were manufacturing jobs in factories. They were those were very high paying, and that's what supported the growth of the American middle class. Oh, I do not know. And, I'm talking to people right now about this. I had a long talk with Jack Dorsey this morning, and I'm talking with a lot of people in the.
So there's more to it, but I don't want to show you such a long clip. I don't know about you guys. I didn't hear one coherent economic policy in that whole thing. The only thing he really, I guess, specified, he used a reference point that many years ago when the Pentagon budget was $600 billion, there was a promise to cut it down to $200 billion, which is a $400 billion cut. So, I mean, I have reached out to him for an interview. Does that mean you're going to try and cut the Pentagon budget from $900 billion? Oh, actually, yeah, about $900 billion now down to $500 billion. And if that's the case, are you just going to kidnap all of Congress, lock them in a room and do it unilaterally? Because good luck cutting $9 from the Pentagon budget with this Congress. So I'm hearing a lot of talk about what he would do, and I'm not hearing an actual dollar number to it, like how much you're going to try to cut and how the hell you're going to do it with this corrupt Congress. I don't think that's unfair. And, he had no specification. when he says, my job is to rebuild the American middle class. I don't know about you folks. I've heard a lot of fucking politicians over the years talk about rebuilding the middle class. How'd that work out for everybody? Does he have a particular policy? I mean, whether you're a Bernie guy and gal or not a Bernie guy and gal, it was pretty simple. Medicare for all, right? Like, that's why a lot of people were attracted to Bernie. He stood by the policies he championed. He did not waver. He specified bold policies. He didn't just talk in generalities about, I'm just going to rebuild the middle class and I'm going to bring the jobs back, which was Trump's baloney and bullshit. But RFK says, I'm going to rebuild the American middle class and manufacturing. Okay, well, how exactly are you going to do that? By the way, I have looked at his website. I don't really see a lot of specifics there either. Marianne Williamson, for example, she has said she's for Medicare for all. If I interview her on these things, I would ask, all right, what's the plan to get it? She has talked about a new economic bill of rights. That is a specific economic plan. I'm just hearing a lot of talk from Mr. RFK Jr. When he is asked specifically about UBI and a jobs guarantee, he responds, I don't know about that. I need to look at these things and talk to a lot of economists. It's a real departure from the free market capitalism. Quote, let's give this system a chance to work. Colin, could you come on? Let's give this system a chance to work. Has 40 years not been a long enough time to see if this neoliberal free market system works? And why do you need to talk to economists now? Why didn't you do that before you decided to run for president? And why weren't your policies and ideas formed before you decided to run for president? I'm not trying to treat him differently than others, but and I don't think Marianne Williamson is perfect, but she does have some specific policies she's running on. She has also, I think, out-lefted Bernie and others dating back to 2020, running on reparations for Black people, which I think Bernie should have ran on. But I'm just hearing a lot of Ukraine, because I think there's like a political, opening for that, and nothing else.
Well, not only that, but it's
I want to say this one more time. Let's give this system a chance to work. Are you out of your mind?
Is it not enough that every president since Reagan has had, when it boils down to it, identical economic policies? Have we not? Like, how long is a trial run until we're like, all right, we're out of the trial run to decide whether it works? But when you try to propose policies that actually help people, and if they'll do some sort of accounting thing to make it mess up on the first try, and then like, oh, that doesn't work, we're done with that forever. And we can't give that 40 years of tries.
And I know the devil's advocate was like, well, Jordan, he's talking about a real free market. There's no such thing as a free market if you have a purchased government. Say it with me, folks. We live in the United Corporations of America. There's no such thing as a free market if your government has been purchased by Wall Street, fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, and the military industrial complex. I don't hear him talking about public financing of campaigns. I don't hear him talking about getting money out of politics. I don't hear him. I didn't even play this part, but they asked him a very simple question. What's your dollar amount for raising the minimum wage? He didn't have an answer for that. He is not his father, Bobby Kennedy. So besides all the vax stuff, which for me is a non-starter, and that is totally, I would never support somebody who pushes dangerous, debunked, deadly conspiracies like he does. But he can't even answer just basic economic questions. He says, well, I got to talk to some economists on UBI, on a jobs program. In a previous interview, he said, well, in theory, I believe in universal care, but it's not pragmatic. Well, why is that a different answer than Hillary Clinton saying, oh, Medicare for all will never, ever come to pass. And we can't waste, we don't have time to waste people's time with something that will never, ever come to pass. He's just saying that in a calmer way. So, hey, if you support him because of his Ukraine position or his vaccine position, hey, that's fine. Support whoever you want. But don't be fooled that this man is a progressive on economics, on most things. He is a champion of the free market. That's what he called himself, a champion of the free market. There is no oh, you have the clip, Colin, from 2009. Let's play it.
And we have this White House up there now that's claiming, you know, we're a White House of values, but to me, it seems that all of the values that they claim to embrace are just these hollow Hollywood facades that mask the one value that they really consider worth fighting for, and that's corporate profit-taking. They say that they like free markets, but they despise free markets. There is no stronger advocate for free market capitalism than myself. The best thing that can happen to the environment is if we had true free market capitalism in this country, because the free market encourages efficiency. And efficiency means the elimination of waste, and pollution is waste. You show me a polluter, I'll show you a subsidy. I'll show you a fat cat using political clout to escape.
Pass. Pass. First of all, if he thinks the only way to create a free market is to get rid of the corporate welfare and subsidies, yeah, that's like 30% of it, maybe 35% of it. That's just scratching the surface, RFK. I agree with you on getting rid of the corporate subsidies, the corporate welfare, but that's not addressing the fact that our government is purchased, the lobbyists, the fact that we have insider trading going on among our politicians, the fact that super PACs and a Supreme Court have basically made elections just a race to who could raise the most money and, you know, outspend their competitor. And yeah, I just, you know, listen, if I'm not like a absolutist, like you must be a socialist or I won't consider voting for you. But if you're talking about free market capitalism, he's Bill Clinton on economics, folks. And by the way, to everyone who thinks he's suddenly seen the light and he's anti-war, well, somebody should ask him, well, if you're so anti-war, why did you support Hillary Clinton 3 times? Were you not aware of her record on war? Or maybe he supported her because he's a Kennedy, and as from one political dynasty to another, that's his club. Let's play one more clip from this interview.
We wanted to ask you, too, a little bit about your views of current President Biden. So one of the concerns among the general public and among Democratic primary voters as well is about his age and his just ability to perform the job that is entailed as president of the United States. Do you personally think that Joe Biden is fit to serve as president for another 4 years?
You know, I don't have any idea. I think people around him should be giving them good advice on that if they think that there's a lack of mental acuity or lack of capacity to deal with crises or lack of independent, you know, an ability to exercise the independent and very good judgment. I think that they and have his family and his counselors have an obligation to our country to, you know, to tell them to step down. But I don't have any kind of insight. And, you know, I see some of the films and stuff.
Right. And you know him, don't you?
Yeah, but I haven't seen him in years. And when I had interactions with him, he was always very sharp. And so I don't know what he's like now behind the scenes.
Listen, there's a way of just saying the truth without being disrespectful, without being ageist, without, you know, being Trump. You're running. This has very Bernie vibes to me. My friend Joe here. I'm not going to go after him on his fake civil rights record and him lying about his civil rights record. I'm not going to go after him on being a corrupt servant of Wall Street. I'm not going to go after him on the crime bill and say I fucked up in voting it. Bernie voted for it, but this man still stands by that this ushered in did not create mass incarceration. He just wouldn't go after him, and the answer to that is very simple. You know, I respect President Biden. It's his decision whether to run again, but it does seem just to, you know, on the eye test that he is, not cognitively as sharp as he once was. He is the oldest president ever. He seems to have had trouble recently with balance. Of course, you know, he has tripped a few times. And, you know, I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose anything, but it does clearly he is not at his best. I wish him well, but I think he's 69. So I am, over 10 years younger. That's a diplomatic way of saying I wish him well, but clearly there's some issues here. Wouldn't even answer that. Let's do another.
One of the interesting things in primary differences between yourself and President Biden that you've been talking about is the way that you would approach the war in Ukraine. So I'm curious, right now, we see recent polling have in front of me about 79% of Democrats saying, according to Axios Ipsos, say that they support continuing military aid to Ukraine. Since you are a Democratic candidate, how do you plan on changing some of people's minds within the Democratic base about the U.S. approach to Ukraine?
I mean, my only way of doing that is to continue talking about it and continuing to sort of get people to, I don't think you even have to change people's minds about the, about whether, clearly Putin broke the law. He's a gangster. This was a brutal invasion that could have been avoided. And I don't think you need to change people's minds about that. I think we all want peace, and the number of Ukrainians who have now died, some estimates are over 350,000 of the kids, Ukrainian kids on the front lines, and then 14 or 15,000 civilians, and that's not good for anybody. And then 30 to 80,000 Russians.
So I'm not going to play the whole thing because I'm on a time crunch, but if you watch the interview, he basically, I agree with his sentiment about Ukraine. I have not heard him give any specifics about day one he's president. How is he going to end the war? What is his approach? How is he going to approach Russia and Ukraine? What is he going to propose? What terms is he going to propose that Russia has to agree to and Ukraine has to agree to? I don't know. Have any of you? I know there's some RFK supporters in there. It's not enough to just say, I want the war to end and, it's a proxy war and, be right theoretically. How are you going to do it? I've been doing this a long time. I don't care what politicians say therefore. I care what is their actions and their record. His actions, he's not a politician. His actions is supporting Hillary Clinton, who's one of the biggest warmongers of the 20th and 21st century, and supporting other warmongers, by the way. So I didn't get any specifics on the economy, on Ukraine, and of course him dodging on Biden. I found it particularly concerning that he's a Democratic presidential candidate and does not have an answer on what do you think the minimum wage needs to be increased to. That's no different than Andrew Yang, who didn't even seem to strongly convey there should be a minimum wage. So you don't have an answer on UBI. You don't have an answer on a jobs guarantee. You don't have an answer on, well, no, he does. He doesn't think Medicare for all is practical. You don't have an answer on a minimum wage. You say cut the military budget, but you don't give a dollar amount or how you're going to do it. I mean, you could vote for him if you're with him on vaccines or with him on get out of Ukraine, even though he's not giving a blueprint. And I don't agree with Marianne Williamson on Ukraine, and I certainly don't agree with Biden, but I think RFK, I get major Obama vibes from RFK. A lot of talk that sounds nice without much underneath it. All right, we got a few more minutes. Let's switch to the last topic here. Let's listen to Cornel West announcing his decision on the Katie Halper show last night.
I wanted to ask you, of course, about your presidential run. And there's some exciting news, I believe. So last week, Chris Hedges, friend of the show, Chris Hedges, said during an event for Workers Strike Back, which was organized by Kshama Sawant, he said that he wanted you to run as a Green Party candidate. And you, of course, when you announced you were with the Movement for the People's Party, the MPP. Do you have an update about this?
Oh, yes. No, that process is very much in movement, and I look forward to it. I'll always have gratitude for the tremendous work of the volunteers of the People's Party and so forth. But there was so much going on internally, and therefore we had to be able to keep the focus where it belongs. And so I am still deeply committed to a broad coalitional sensibility and a united front. And so I invite a variety of different organizations, and that includes the People's Party. But I'm certainly moving in the not just toward, but want to look forward to being a part of the nomination process of the Green Party. And I look forward to being able to already be in very rich conversation with my dear brother Barack and my dear sister Stein, Sister Jill.
So he has to now run through the Green Party nomination process and win the nomination. I don't know who else is running. I suspect Cornel West, has a strong chance of winning the Green Party nomination. Besides all of the shady stuff that we've reported over and over about MPP, I also felt it was kind of odd that you call yourself the People's Party, but didn't have a primary. You just anointed Cornel West your candidate, which isn't really how political primaries help. Isn't how political parties are supposed to work. We see the Democratic Party has basically canceled the primary and just we're giving it to Biden, the nomination. And I say kudos to Cornel West because as a person and a politician, it's important that you actually listen to feedback. I don't know how much of the accusations Cornel West knew about. I don't know how much he looked into it as far as the accusations against Nick Brana, the accusations overall about the mistreatment of volunteers, the disorganization, the things I reported about the purging of board members. I don't know how much of that he looked into, but credit to him for, making a pivot quickly once he got this negative backlash. And I'll tell you, look at this USA Today story. I am certainly not saying this is easy. I'm certainly not saying everybody just get in there and he'll win and become a Green Party candidate who wins the presidency. This is a long shot, obviously. But, President Joe Biden holds a single-digit edge over both President Trump and DeSantis in 2024 presidential race polls, according to a USA Today Suffolk University poll. But nearly 1 in 4 voters say they would support a third-party candidate if the election was held today. In a potential rematch of the 2020 contest, Biden is backed by 34%, Trump by 32%. 23% say they would support an unspecified independent contender. In a choice between Biden and DeSantis, Biden leads 33-26, but 25% indicate they would vote for a third-party candidate. A poll is a poll. It's just a snapshot that could obviously change and could go down. But I do believe if you have a rematch of Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, and I, by the way, think Marianne Williamson and RFK belong on a debate stage. They are both polling higher than most of the Republicans in the race. They should be debates. So Biden should not just, glide to the nomination. They both deserve to be on the debate stage. RFK is polling between 15 and 20%. Marianne between 6 and 11%, I believe. But listen, if you have a rematch between Biden and Trump, and at that point, Trump could be 4 times convicted and actively going through his criminal trials, Biden, who the hell knows what state he'll be in. Crazier things have happened. Donald Trump did become president. Obviously, if Cornel West gets momentum, they will try to rig it and rig it and rig it and rig it. But crazier things have happened. And I do think if you have a matchup of 2 people whose both of their favorability ratings are literally at 31%, Biden and Trump in a recent poll, 31% favorability rate. Cornel West is inspirational. Let's not make the mistake of all, thinking the solution is all just a politician and Cornel West is going to part the seas and heal the earth. We can't stop doing stuff outside electoral politics, union drives, worker strikes, tenants unions. And we'll talk more about that at another time. But the point is, it's not crazy to think Cornel West could at least be the most competitive third-party candidate, possibly since Ross Perot, who ran as an independent in 1992. Let me just read a couple super chats real quick. Don't go anywhere either because we are switching over. Stay right here. We're going to be switched. Colin, do I have to save the super chats for next time?
Or it's up to you as far as timing.
Yeah, I don't know if it automatically goes to Kim's show.
No, it'll go as soon as I hit live on her side. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read the super chats, but don't go anywhere. Kim Brown is going to be continuing right after I read the super chats. Thank you, Double K. Appreciate it. 1999. Thank you, Ariana. New YouTube member. Caitlin, $5. It was nice to see The Hill giving coverage of Kalamazoo today. Yes, I was on The Hill this morning, so check that out on the Rising channel. I really appreciate them having me on for updates on the toxic paper mill story that we broke here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So definitely go watch that. Jonathan Williams, this is my first show as a paying Status Coup member. I'm so glad to be able to support you all. Keep up the great work. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jonathan. And please, to the almost 300 people watching, this on-the-ground reporting as well as investigative reporting that both Lewis and I are doing behind the scenes. We're both working on investigative stories. It is not cheap. It takes a lot of money to travel. Again, Tina is going back to Atlanta in a week and a half to cover the continued protests against Cop City. I'm currently working on scheduling an on-the-ground trip. All of this costs money. We also just purchased a brand new live view, which cost us $15,000. It was not cheap. It really wasn't something technically we had the money, but really shouldn't have spent the money, but we needed it. So every new member helps. StatusCoup.com/join. You could join for $5 a month or $10 a month or $20 a month. Every new member helps. $5 a month is 16 cents a day. Schultze, I agree though, Jordan, underneath it all, they're like good people for the most part, but have influenced by TV personalities and their lack of critical thinking. I agree. Double K, 1999. I wonder how many vote. It's a good question. Bodhisattva, Trump supporters and shit libs are two sides of the same stupid coin. Dub Animal, 499. Super sticker. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Leaf, 100. Noke. I think that's the Netherlands. Thank you for the super sticker. Fiona, Crystal and Sagar asked him about trans issue and advertisement. RFK didn't answer and rather turned it into an environmental issue. I did see that part. I wanted to spend the whole hour on RFK, but we had to cover these other things too. I thought his answer on trans issues was absolutely deplorable. That's another non-starter for me. If you are a progressive, which I am, you need to stand up for the LGBTQ community. That includes gay people, that includes bisexual, that includes transgender, non-binary, whatever. And don't submit to these anti-woke fucking losers. For the most part, woke means just human decency. Okay? So yeah, his answer on that was deplorable. Thank you for watching. Don't go anywhere. This stream will go right into Kim Brown's show. Wait till you hear about the Georgia canine police dog and how the police dog died. Kim's also has strong thoughts on some of the clips from the Trump rally I covered last night. We'll be back here tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern. Please sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Here's Kim Brown.